mine who, in her MBBS exam, it was the final examination in her Viva, an examiner just plainly, just said in passing by, he did not ask her any questions or anything, and just said that, uh, what do you have to do? You just have to make rotis and chapatis. I'll pass you anyways. It's okay. I'll ask you an easy question and then you go. This happened to me as well in another subject, which was the exam was going on. Works?
Perfect. Yeah. Okay.
No. Thank you for having me here.
So officially welcome to podcast, BioTales podcast second episode. We are very happy to have you with us. We will be starting with some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
How did you get into medicine? Like, what was your thinking behind, like, yeah, I want to do medicine? What made you sure?
What made me sure? Since my childhood, it was inculcated in me, I think, that like every Indian parent, my parents wanted their children to either be a doctor or to be an engineer or to be a chartered accountant. One of these three, like one of these professionals. So it got inculcated in me that I have to be a doctor. And my mother, she always wanted to be a doctor, and somehow she couldn't be. She ended up doing something in science. She did MSc in biology and botany, but she didn't get into medicine at that time. It was difficult for her to get into it. So she wanted to fulfill her dream through me. So I think that is how I ended up taking medicine. And my brother ended up being a chartered accountant. So I think my parents are happy that way.
That trend seems to be so common in people of your generation, like parents only wanted engineers or doctors. Yeah.
Parents really know. Yeah.
Yeah. So according to you, how do you think that you got it? What was the extra edge or something that you had that made you get into Lady Hardinge?
An extra edge. I think I was very patient with the entire process of the entrance examination. I didn't get through in the first go during my MBBS entrances. I didn't get through. But I was very, very much prepared with the process that it takes time. I knew that a lot of people had to drop a couple of years before they got into a good medical college. So that was, again, something that I had seen happening around me. And I was very patient with the fact, and I was very determined that this is what I want to do, just this or nothing else. So I think that helped me.
Determination is the key.
And yeah.
So what do you think? What are some qualities that every doctor needs?
Some qualities. One, I think, is you should always be inquisitive. You should always be ready to learn. When you join, the day you decide actually to become a doctor, from that day you're a student, whether it's your entrances or whether it is till the end of your life. Every patient that you see, it's a learning process entirely. You learn with each and every book that you read, with each and every patient that you see. So yeah, that is one thing. And another thing is to not be very anxious. You need to keep your calm. Very difficult, but yes.
What is one major highlight from your MBBS days? That whenever someone says MBBS, what is one thing that you remember instantly?
Instantly, one thing that I remember is that I skipped one of my exams. It was a class test kind of a thing. I was preparing. I had taken 2 days leave just to prepare for that exam because I had not read for it. It was an ophthalmology exam. So I had taken 2 days leave. And on the day I took the leave, one of my friends called me up and she told me, where are you? She just asked me, casually, where are you? And I was like, I'm at home. She said, exam dena nahi hai? Huh? Aaj hai? Like, then she kept the phone. She knew that I will not be able to reach. She established that and she kept the phone. She hung up. I got all panicked and I was like, oh shit, I do not even remember the date of the examination. Then I hurried up. I just reached 5 minutes before the exam had to get over. And I just wrote my name. I just wrote the question number and I wrote one line in the entire paper and I just gave the answer sheet to the examiner. That is one thing that I'll never forget. It was very embarrassing because I forgot the date. I mean, how can you do that? That happened with
It's
me.
okay. It happens with a lot of us. I remember, like, when I was in 8th or 9th grade, we had an exam of maths and I was studying for English. Like, at the moment I reached school, I saw everyone was having maths. So I'm like, oh my God, we have a maths exam. Yeah, it happens with all of us. What made you
Yeah.
choose anesthesiology as a specialty?
I never chose to be an anesthesiologist in the first place. It just happened by luck and by chance. I always wanted to be a general surgeon. I grew up watching Grey's Anatomy, if you have seen it.
Yeah.
I have like binge watched that series like anything. I know it by heart, each and every episode. It's in my blood and vein. That much I love Grey's Anatomy. So obviously, I wanted to be a general surgeon and save lives. And all save is it's a beautiful day to save lives. But as fate had it, I did not get a rank good enough for general surgery during my postgraduate entrances. And I was getting general surgery, but not in Delhi. And having been born and brought up in Delhi, I just wanted to stay here. I did not want to step out of the city. And so I ended up taking anesthesiology. And I love it now.
That
I
makes
love my
sense.
branch.
Even Ben, Bailey's husband in Grey's Anatomy, was an anesthesiologist. So you still got to play one of the characters.
Yeah.
How is it working as an anesthesiologist?
It's been going great. Not many people know much about anesthesiology. There's not much exposure. Even as an undergraduate student, being in this profession, I did not know much about anesthesiology and what anesthetists actually do. But it's beautiful. You deal with so many patients. You make patients go through painful procedures, through pain-free surgeries. They wake up not even knowing that what procedure has been done on them, and that is beautiful. That's just beautiful. And you work as a critical care physician as well. You take care of ICU patients, the patients on ventilator who are critically ill. It's I love my job. It's
That's
amazing.
great. I mean, anesthesiology is a great branch according to me. So, like, I'm someone who's very scared of injections or anything related to medicines and everything. So when I was small, I was like, get me an anesthesia and then I will get the injection. So yeah, it's great what you're doing. So let's move to the serious topic that we wish to focus here. Sexism in medicine. Have you ever faced it yourself, like a senior, discriminating on the basis of gender and stuff like that?
Not exactly. We do not face it very directly, but it's in subtle forms. Like I remember there was this friend of mine who, in her MBBS exam, it was the final examination in her Viva, an examiner just plainly, just said in passing by, he did not ask her any questions or anything and just said that, what do you have to do? You just have to make rotis and chapatis. I'll pass you anyways. It's okay. I'll ask you an easy question and then you go. This happened to me as well in another subject, which was the exam was going on for. And at that time, we were very happy. We've been passed. But later on, I realized it after a few days that it was not something that should have been said. We should not have been asked an easy question just because there is a presumption that we have to bail off our rotis and chapatis after we finish off our MBBS. Why? Don't we deserve to do a post graduation? Don't we deserve to be, or are we not capable enough to give those many working hours? Are we not capable enough to imbibe that much of knowledge? Why? Or maybe are we not skilled enough to perform those surgeries? I think we all are.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Is it just a people in senior positions, or is it the patients as well who do these kind of things in subtle ways? So for example, I read
Yeah,
someone's article, so instead of calling the female doctor as a doctor, the patient kept on calling her as sweetie or referring to her as nurse. Is that something that happens a lot?
that happens almost every day. I don't know how many times I have heard nurse from a patient instead of a doctor. Not in any way I'm saying that being called a nurse is demeaning or anything, but it's just a general presumption that people have. Nurse is an equally, grateful job for people to do. I respect all the healthcare workers who are into this profession of serving the patients, but uh, especially the patients, the general public identifies with a male being a doctor and a female being a nurse, but it can be vice versa. We have in our hospital itself, we have so many male nurses, so many of them, and we have so many female physicians and surgeons. So I don't think this should even exist. It just does not make sense to me.
So how do you think a male or a female physician, coming from a culture in which women do not hold high positions, or like you said, the senior said that roti banana hi kaam hai, how do you think people coming from culture where this is so common, would react to things where they have women supervisors or female supervisors or attendings? What is your common reaction?
What is my reaction to them?
Reaction to people who come from culture where it is unusual for women to be in high post, and when they come and they see that they have women physician, they have female supervisors.
They don't react in a very positive manner. Men especially, of I think who are 1 or 2 generations ahead of us, they react in a very weird and I would say in a very demeaning manner. If they see that a female is doing better than them or holds a position of higher power, they talk behind her back. They will say bad things about her, and they might even say that her being in that position was not because of her achievements or her academic qualifications. This is something that is very common. I've seen, and I don't think it is there in this generation. People are changing, times are changing, but yes, 1 or 2 generations behind us, it's still prevalent.
What do you think is the best way to respond to people like that who discriminate or still have that stereotypical mindset?
To just zip it up. I don't respond to them. It's just, I think, best to stay quiet and not respond to them. You cannot change a person's thinking. You cannot change the way a person thinks and the way he or she has been brought up. It's been inculcated in them. You can just make people more aware, but you cannot, just point at one person and say that you're wrong. They will never agree to it. It's better to just keep quiet, do your work, and move out.
So, does the hospital provide kind of resources to deal with such discrimination? So in our school, we had a help box. So if any girl faced such discrimination, she could just write a letter and put it in the box anonymously, or if she wanted to reveal.
Are you from DPS?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Yeah. We had a similar thing in DPS.
Now, actually, this box, I think, I'm not sure, the government has made it compulsory in all of the schools now.
Okay. Yeah. But it was there back then. It was not a box, but yes, there was one person assigned to whom we could go and talk to. Not like a box, but there's somebody that we could talk to.
Are these resources available in a hospital or working facilities? So if you face some kind of discrimination, is there a way you can file a complaint or something?
Not at all. We can definitely file a complaint to the director if we face such a thing, but nothing of that sort has been made available. It's not like a provision has been made or there is a set authority for it. Not yet.
So what about the people who actually make a complaint? Do they face more discrimination or backlash from the people they made against? So for example, let's say a friend of yours made a complaint against a senior. The senior got to know, and after that, does he ill treats more, or does he actually have an improvement?
I think people then maintain their distance from that person. There's always groupism. There's always people who would think in favor of one person rather than the other. So people tend to ignore that particular person, and it happens both ways.
Mm-hmm. Do you think
nothing's out in the open?
Gender discrimination in medicine is just an issue for women only, or men also face it in healthcare field? So if a man
definitely
so if a man goes to chooses OBGYN as a specialty.
Yes, definitely. I've seen that happening in my hospital. I work in Lady Hardinge Hospital. I've been here since 10 years. I've done my undergraduation, I've done my post-graduation from here, and I'm still doing my senior residency here. So in these years, I've seen personally 3 postgraduate students who were males, and they took up obs-gynae, and they took it up by choice because they really wanted to pursue that branch. So, but they faced a lot of stigma, and they faced a lot of issues in their own department. One of them had to actually leave it. I don't know what his reasons were, but what I hear is that he could not handle the stress and the the stigma and everything which was related to this male being in obs-gynae.
That makes sense. I mean, it shouldn't be there, but it still exists in
it
certain
should not
ways.
Be. Yeah.
So you said you took a drop year before you got into Lady Hardinge. How did you deal with being in a drop year? So a lot of students the last year took a drop year because how late NEET got. A lot of people will take it this year because how high the pressure is. So what is some advice you will give to people who wish to take a drop year or who are thinking to take a drop year?
See, I told you, right? If you're focused, if you are determined that you have to be a doctor, nothing can stop you. Take this drop year and whatever extended time that you've got because of the delay in examinations as an extra time that you've got by God to study for your exam. Take it like that. Take it in a good manner. Take it in a positive sense that you've got extra time. Now you'll work even harder, and maybe you'll be able to imbibe certain more knowledge. You'll be able to imbibe more information, which might be helpful for you in the final exam. Take as many MCQ question papers, do as many question papers as you can, and never be disheartened by the fact that I am getting delayed, I am getting left behind. These 1 or 2 years that you'll have to drop, ultimately they make no significance if you want to pursue your career in medicine. I dropped 2 years. I dropped 1 year during my undergraduation, then again during my post-graduation I had to drop. So see, I dropped twice, and there are friends of mine who did not drop. They're in the same position that I am. It's okay. They're just 2 years younger than me. So what? Ultimately, we're doing the same thing.
Even in countries like USA or Canada, like the process to get into med school is like 4 years of undergrad. So just think it this way, you are getting there younger than most people abroad would. How did you stay motivated during that period of time? Like you are seeing your friends in medical school, you are seeing a lot of people from your school already getting degrees and already doing so good, doing internships. How did you, stayed in that mindset? Yes, I want to do this.
I used to talk to my family a lot. One thing that really helped me, my mother and my brother, they were a very positive support system. My mother, my father, they always used to, shield me from everything. It's okay. Doesn't matter. Let the world say whatever it wants to. Let them go ahead. It's okay. They've taken their degrees. Fine. Ultimately, you will be in a better place than them. They always assured me this. Maybe I am in a better place. Maybe I'm not. It's okay. But for me and for my family, I am in a better place. So yeah, I think a positive influence around you also helps a lot. If you have a very positive atmosphere around you, a very supportive family, which I think most of us are blessed with these days, And if you do not have that kind of a structure or an environment, find your friends, find people who are in the same journey as yours. Don't compare and contrast yourself with other people who are not in the same boat. God does not bestow everybody with the same things. They'll give you some and will take some from you. It's never equal. So never compare and contrast.
You mentioned the word comparison, which brings me to something that Indian parents do a lot. They compare their children.
Yeah.
So do you think the medical school or medical college a child enters, even if it's good or not, does it make a big impact in their career? So, for instance, someone is getting in a very famous medical college in Delhi, and someone is getting in a college in maybe a small place like Shimla or Rajasthan. Do you think it actually makes a difference in the long run?
See, I'll tell you one thing. How much you are willing to accept and how much knowledge you're willing to take in depends completely on you. Definitely, colleges make a difference. I will say government colleges are better because they have more number of patients. They have more patient load. So you get to see a variety of cases. You get to practice a lot more. So in that sense, government colleges, I think, have an edge over private colleges just in this sense. And it does not matter whether you get it in Delhi or you get it in Kanyakumari. It's okay. If the government college, the patient load is going to be the same. You're going to learn the same amount of things. You're going to acquire the same amount of skills. So in that way, it's the same. And then coming to government and private colleges, again, even if you've done from a private college, and if you have the zeal and desire to learn, there is always scope. They also teach you everything. And later on, if you want to, develop more skills, you can always go and do a residency in a government college or in a government hospital to acquire, those skills. So it completely depends on you. There's no comparison as such.
That makes a lot of sense.
Depends on the person's ability.
Yeah, someone can thrive in a small place while someone in a big college is not doing well. Yeah,
exactly.
It brings me to my next question. So there are a lot of stereotypes with students who are wishing to enter medicine. So the major one being medical students don't have fun, they don't have a social life. What was the best thing related to social life or having fun that you did in your MBBS or MD days?
I partied a lot during my post-graduation. I partied a lot. I told you I entered anesthesiology by chance. So during my first year, I was not very much fond of anesthesia. I do not like that subject very much because I did not have an awareness about it. I did not know what an anesthesiologist does. I did not read much about it. So what I used to do to overcome that maybe you can call it a defense mechanism or something, I used to party and then say that, yeah, I like my batch. So I partied like anything. During my entire first year, I did not pick up my book. I used to go to the hospital. I used to get the cases done. I used to learn everything that was taught there. And then I used to go back and party. I made a lot of friends during my post-graduations, which I still have, and I cherish them a lot. I've made friends for a lifetime.
Lady Arden is very near to CP, so you would have access to every best place to party.
Yes. One reason why I took up Lady Arden.
Yeah. So other than being determined and being motivated, what is some other advice that you will give to children who are preparing for NEET right now and are going to enter medicine?
One advice. I told you, one thing is that you have to constantly learn. You need to get that in your head that you will always be a student, no matter what. And to keep your calm. This is something that I think is automatically imbibed because you prepare during your 11th and 12th, then you drop. And if you can't maintain your calm and you can't keep your cool, I don't think you can even survive those 3 years, 11th and 12th, and then drop year and then go for 5.5 years MBBS. If you don't have that much of patience, a lot of people drop out in their second year of college. So try doing, other than just studying, take care of yourself. Do yoga, do meditation, do anything that keeps you sane. If you like to party, go party. Do not neglect your personal health that much. Do not be just engrossed in your books. Take time for yourself as well. That is extremely, extremely important. Have a good environment around you. Talk to your parents, make friends, talk to them, share your things with them, and go out, party, chill also.
Yeah, that is the big issue. Like with the pandemic, no one is able to leave the house. So no parties, nothing, just family support and friends. Right now for all of us.
Have virtual these things, no? Virtual parties.
We seem to be, that is what we are hoping to do every time someone's birthday come or something is there to do. Yeah. Thanks a lot for your words of wisdom. Thanks a lot for being here. It was great talking to you.